this episode, we experience not so delicate work on our van. We find extraordinary camp spots on the Pacific Ocean, and for a few weeks, we have company in the van.
So, this is Laura.
Use me, little vlog. Use me.
Cut.
In the last episode, we reached the northern end of the famous Carretera Austral at Pumalin National Park, saw some of the oldest species on Earth, and finally left Patagonia after almost 2 years, with the goal to reach the Atacama Desert. Before we get into the desert in roughly 5 minutes and 4 seconds from now, we first need to take care of some black exhaust smoke. We're told we could find Herbert Wiemeister, the specialist for diesel systems, along our route in a rather unlikely place, here on this farm in Frutillar. In a barn behind the main house built by his grandfather, Herbert established a workshop for diesel injection systems with a reputation far beyond the Chilean borders.
Wer bist du denn?
Herbert says he'll do everything in his power to help us, and first thing next morning, his mechanics take out our diesel injectors, clean them in ultrasonic baths for a night, and then run extensive tests. They measure pressure, flow rates, reaction times and leak tightness, and indeed, one of our injectors is not working properly, which explains the black smoke and sometimes sluggish startup. Meanwhile, a look out of the window reveals that Frida's bleeding. Our steering rig loses its entire reservoir of Servo oil within a few minutes. Herbert calls Mercedes late at night, which deliver a new steering rig to his doorstep next morning, and asks his injection specialist to exchange the unit so that we don't have to go find another workshop.
Look in.
Finally.
Nice. Turns out that the bloody mice from last year had also eaten into the rubber that protects the steering rig's moving mechanical parts. Incoming water and dirt have corroded the unit until complete failure. We are afraid of the bill after days of work. When the last day approaches, we ask Herbert what we owe him, and all he replies is he's glad that he could help and he wishes us the best of luck for the trip. What a legend. Herbert, wir danken dir von Herzen. To Helena's rather openly expressed dismay, we have one more workshop to attend before finally hitting the road to Atacama. After weeks of repairs, we're worn out and tired. So instead of the ear-blasting noise of heavy metal steelwork, we'll set this to some quiet ambient music. Last year, one of our rear springs broke in half, and we feel like some strengthening might be a good idea. These guys forge us an extra set of leaves in what feels like a dystopian Mad Max movie set. It's icy cold winter, except for close to the ovens, where the heat melts your face off. The screaming noise of multiple saws and grinders mixed with heavy hammer blows at ear-shattering volume. Headphone users beware in 3, 2, 1. You get the point. Powerful blows with a hammer and an experienced eye forges the glowing steel into the shape of our suspension. The resulting extra spring is now tapered, attached to the stock springs, and finally reinstalled. Looking back at the last couple of weeks, with repairs to our alternator, our batteries, our CV joints, our steering rig, our parking brake, our rear differential, and our diesel injectors, it's been a time of incredibly great support by the kindest people imaginable, but also a time of struggle, with weeks of time, money, and energy-draining work on the car in the middle of dark and cold winter. And to be honest with you, we feel emotionally exhausted, and we're sorry that we couldn't bring up the energy to talk much to the camera in this episode. We were wondering if we should edit this episode at all. But when we see these tough men watch our little YouTube with curiosity, it does put a smile on our face.
So after 3 weeks of non-stop repairs, I think I can say now that I'm done. I can't stand it anymore, and I'm just hoping that now Frida is good and she'll drive us to Atacama. Yay. Let's go. So on the way north, we're currently passing through Conguillo National Park in Entschuldigung.
It's 1,000 kilometers from here to Santiago, and as we head north, the B roads change from snow to deep mud.
Woo-hoo! We are so rock and roll! Ah! Freedom! What is freedom to you? To me, freedom is this.
West of Santiago, we reach the Pacific Ocean. For the first time in months, we can sit outside and watch the sunset without freezing our butts off. Here we meet Laura. Hey Laura.
Oh yeah, soy Laura.
Laura joins us on a road trip to San Pedro de Atacama. From Santiago, the Route 5 mostly follows along the Pacific Ocean, and soon we find ourselves amidst big waves, huge cactuses, and barren land. The Humboldt Current brings cold water from Antarctica north along the Pacific western coast of South America until northern Peru. The current leads to deep water and nutrients rising up to the surface, creating one of the most productive and biodiverse marine ecosystems on the planet. Now that the educational part of the video is done and we're here with two girls by the Pacific Ocean, how about we show some boobies? Sir David Attenborough, what are these birds called?
Boobies, 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 boobies.
And here, they still thrive. If you haven't seen though, they do have a pretty cool trick up their sleeves. These birds dive bomb and hit the water at about 100 kilometers an hour to feast on the shoals of anchovies and mackerels below the surface. Did we already tell you that female boobies do tend to be larger than their male counterparts? The camps that we find here are just incredible. When we started imagining this trip 3 years ago, I remember certain images coming to my mind. The mountains of Patagonia, the Amazon River, the US Southwest, the Altai, and most definitely also Atacama and the Altiplano. These landscapes are iconic and unique, an overlander's dream.
So here we are.
Wow.
Pas mal, hein?
It's one of the nicest places I think we've seen so far in Chile. Actually being in these places physically now, instead of in daydreams during the planning of the trip and conversion of our car, feels totally surreal. We're here. We're now where we dreamt of someday driving through. But the brain somehow hasn't really processed this. Sometimes it almost feels like watching a movie in which we accidentally appear. We eventually leave our dream camp by the Pacific and head northeast into the center of Atacama. We cross the Salar de Atacama with the outskirts of the Altiplano rising in the distance. What used to be a lake thousands of years ago evaporated under the relentless sun into a thick flat of salt and lithium. Almost a third of the world's lithium reserves can be found in this depression, and we see strong mining activity. With a global lithium demand, we're afraid this place will be lost in just a few years. We are closing in on the area around San Pedro de Atacama. South of San Pedro, we find a little track that reaches the outskirts of an area called Valle de la Luna, or the Moon Valley. So this is it, the Atacama, the driest desert on Earth. On average, there is 50 times less rain here than in Death Valley in North America. There is areas here that have not seen a drop of rain in several decades. It's an otherworldly, seemingly hostile, yet spectacularly beautiful place.
Hello people from this vlog. We are in Atacama with Laura and we messed it a little bit because we didn't film enough. So Vincent says we don't have enough footage to show Laura.
But I went up here.
And we have great footage. Maybe there's no story link in this footage, but please vlog. Let us use it. So this is Laura.
Use me, little vlog. Use me.
Cut. So this is Laura and she has been traveling with us for the last fucking 3 weeks? Or what?
In the middle of the desert.
Let's film. After the sun has set, the bright moon and the powerful light bar help us navigate the corroded track while we're looking for a camp for the night in this barren land.
Do you want more tips, Vincent?
We're following the recommendation of fellow overlanders Jess and Sydney, who recommended us to visit an area called Valle del Arcoiris, or Rainbow Valley, 2 hours north. We're amazed at the multitude of colors and intense red on our way in. At the end of the track, deep in the valley, we find a somewhat level place to camp at 3,300 meters and stay for 2 nights in solitude and to acclimatize for the 4,000 to 5,000 meter high passages that are waiting for us. In the morning, we're greeted by the locals.
We have company. Oh, she's so pretty. Hello, darling. Look at her earring.
To recognize from who they are.
I mean, come on, this has got to be a human actor in a costume on some Hollywood fantasy movie set. Those expressions are just way too intense.
Skincare time.
Rude. Mm-hmm. We.
This place, you know, for drawing?
Yes.
Because it's really different from drawing from a picture than drawing from like actually seeing the things.
Can Oh, sorry, but I need to put this.
Why? And while Laura soaks in the environment through her drawings, Helena and I set out on a little hike to explore the area. There is not too many things growing here in this hostile climate, but the few cactuses that do are gigantic.
Wow.
Holy shit.
It's big. Do I have permission to touch you? Thank you. Permiso. Ooh. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Ah, I cannot stop. Oh my god.
Have you noticed this giant phallus?
They don't fall, right?
Not as long as you are around.
This place is like out of this world. Super incredible.
Back in the car, Laura is still indulged in her drawings while I import the day's footage and Helena is reading. Next morning, we're heading back to San Pedro de Atacama to drop off Laura at the bus station for her 24-hour ride back to Santiago. After 3 weeks on the road together, it's time to say goodbye.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Don't forget about me.
No, I will never.
Goodbye, little one.
Laura, I think you're the last one.
Oh shit. Ciao.
Love you.
Nos vemos.
Now it's only both of us, puppy.
Back to the old times rock and roll.
Oh, miss that crazy bitch. 3 weeks with us. Oh, bro, miss her.
So for us, that now means going to where? The Tacho Geysers.
Geysers, water coming from the ground. Explosions.
Exactamente. We leave San Pedro de Atacama north for the famous Altiplano. We aim to reach a geyser field at 4,300 meters to see sunrise there tomorrow morning. On the way there, at around 4,000 meters, we get to experience an incredible sunset. Our plan for the next week is to follow the Ruta Andina, a small backcountry road along the Chilean-Bolivian Altiplano. 800 kilometers without gas stations, sustained altitudes of over 4,000 meters and reaching over 5,000. We're curious how our car and ourselves will cope with these conditions. But all that is for the next episode. We're excited if you click like and subscribe and come follow along. See you next weekend, guys.